Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome to those of you who have already been with us, or to anyone who has just arrived, either here in the Stone Center or in our virtual audience. In case you've just joined us, my name is Adam Sotok, and I have the pleasure as serving as the director of UNC Rural. And UNC Rural is hosting today's event as part of the 5th annual Carolina Engagement Week. UNC Rural is part of the Division of Student Success, and we're very excited about this panel that comes together to talk about student success and service to rural communities. I'm going to introduce each of our great panelists, and then we'll get into our questions and discussion. First of all, here we have Dr. James Burr. James is a nationally recognized leader in higher education and a visionary strategist currently serving as the inaugural Senior Vice Provost for Student Success here at the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Dr. Orr holds a PhD in Public Policy and Administration from Mississippi State University. His career reflects a deep belief in the transformative power of education and a lifelong commitment to ensuring that every student has the opportunity to thrive academically, personally, and professionally. Next, we have with us Marquetta Dickens. And Marquetta, thank you so much for being with us here today. Marquetta is the founder and CEO of Freedom.org, and I'm sure she'll be able to tell you more about Freedom.org. She's also a former NC State and professional basketball player, and she's a therapist and social impact leader. Marquetta Dickens is the driving force behind Freedom.org, a community development corporation which is committed to devising comprehensive, holistic solutions for traditionally under-resourced communities. Driven by her commitment to live faithfully and uphold her family's legacy of societal transformation, she founded the organization to foster economic development, equitable educational alternatives, agricultural independence, and the preservation of heritage within these communities. As Dickens strides into the future, her vision remains resolute, a world where every individual is empowered to carve their own path to greatness. Next, we have Dr. Giselle Corby. Giselle is a family physician. She also serves as the UNC Senior Vice Provost for Faculty Affairs and as the director of the UNC Center for Thriving Communities, amongst many other things. In fact, she was the driving force behind the establishment of UNC Rural. And she also helped and basically came up with the idea for Carolina Engagement Week. So here we are. Everything's coming around full circle.
Be careful.
More than all that, also, she has a passion for and respect for community collaboration. She's also shown a deep commitment to working in rural North Carolina, bringing research to communities, involving community members as partners in research, and improving health of minority populations in underserved areas. Giselle, we're glad to have you today.
Ben said that I have a great ability to give other people work to do.
Yes, there you go. And last but certainly not least, we have Dr. Lynn Blanchard. And Lynn serves as the director of the Carolina Center for Public Service, where she oversees their work, which among many other things includes the Apple Service Learning Program, Buckley Public Service Scholars, the Faculty Engaged Scholars Program, and the Tar Heel Bus Tour, and Carolina Engagement Week. So welcome, Lynn, as well. Okay, so the way we've structured this panel is I have some individualized questions that I'll go through first with each of the panelists and then come back with some follow-up for everyone. So I wanted to start with you, Dr. Orr, if I could. Student success is your charge and your passion. It is obviously a topic that encompasses many different aspects. I wonder, now that you've had some time to settle in your role here at Carolina, if you can share with us some of your thoughts about how to best support UNC students from rural areas. What are some of those unique or even universal needs and opportunities?
Yeah, thank you all so much for being here, and thank you for moderating. I think that one of the most important opportunities that is how we engage and we support students, particularly students from rural communities. If you think about North Carolina, over 75 of our counties, I think it's 78 to be exact, are rural counties. And so when I think about student success, we really have to start at that point from when a student or a family member doesn't even know that they're thinking about college. So for me, I grew up in a rural town, and many times, at least for a lot of the people that I grew up with and myself, I didn't know that college was actually an option for me. I can hear the echo here. Is that okay? Can you hear me better? Okay. So I didn't know that college was an option for me. So part of what we're doing when we think about student success, it starts even before a student is in high school. So 2 years ago, 8.3 million students and families applied to college. They were accepted to college and they chose not to go anywhere. And if any of you, have you heard about the demographic cliff that's coming? So there's this idea that the population of students who are college eligible are decreasing. We're kind of fortunate in North Carolina because we don't see that decrease. But I think that that means that as an institution, UNC-Chapel Hill, we have an obligation to increase college readiness. And that starts in middle school and engaging folks. And then once we think about where a person is ready to go to college, I think it's important that we think about removing the barriers for access to college, right? What are those barriers for access? How do we help students and families navigate our very complex university? And then here's what the important piece is that when our students come to us and they enroll, that we ensure that they get hands-on, minds-on learning experiences and that they have access to all the things that we know help students be successful with an eye towards their careers though, so that when they leave the university, they can go back into their communities and help tell our good story and our message and be successful afterwards.
Thank you, Dr. Orr. Marquetta, shifting gears a little bit here to the community side of things. I know you have lots of experience working in collaboration with campus partners on projects that aim to improve community outcomes. What are some of the most important lessons that you have learned, and what do you think that campus partners need to know to help make these partnerships authentic and effective?
Um, what I always like to lean in on is experience or experiences. Even starting with my own experiences, right? From being from a rural community that's mostly known for sports. We have, I think, 8 football state championships. I'm a Hall of Famer in my community. I play for KL. I play professional basketball. And then I got my master's degree in student affairs and college counseling at an institution that was very heavy on experiential learning. And so it really taught me becoming a therapist more about myself and my experiences and how to listen and also lead, which, as you can see in our mission statement, is really holistic, right? And that's my therapist background. So everything I do really is system based, which is why we have 3 different departments that really encompass what we see as our rural communities and what our rural communities need at that time based on research. So for me, the lesson that I learned is to that everybody comes with experiences and really being able to listen to those experiences and then to be able to formulate solutions with those same folks within my same community, right? Because my experience is going to be different from other folks in my community. And then, like you said, being able to have access to education. My first access to higher education, I always thought about going to the NBA. I wasn't even thinking about college or which college I was going to. I always saw men's basketball on TV. I never saw women's basketball. So what we see really shapes us. And so it was really important for me with my experiences that when we started to do work with Freedom Org, that we were collaborating with higher education. That's my background. Again, it's one of my experiences. I have a master's degree in higher education. And I knew that was something that I didn't see in my community that was tapped into enough. And I figured if we had students come down, they could learn more about our community, but the students in our community can see these same students who come back from college and do the work. And actually through UNC, we had our first intern named Daniel, who was actually from Greenville, North Carolina, which is the next county over. And so he had no idea about Princefield, the history, so on and so forth. And so for me, the lesson that I learned is that, don't don't shy away from understanding experiences, and how to then create and curate intentional experiences for students, especially around experiential learning, and also for a college, especially a public serving college, right? The whole mission is to be a part of the community and to serve the community, and those kinds of things. And so being able to intentionally provide those experiences, and how to provide those experiences, because academia and community work are two totally different things, but really can coincide and really coexist, should coexist. And so for me, it's really, lessons learned was experiences, and then how to curate experiences for academia coming into our communities.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Marquetta. Appreciate that. Just a reminder, we heard on Zoom that folks are having a little bit of trouble hearing us, so if we speak into the microphone, please. So, Dr. Corby, amongst your many endeavors, you've done extensive work alongside community partners in rural Eastern North Carolina. Tell us some about what you've learned along the way and why it's so important that we have strong rural community campus partnerships.
I hope this is better for the folks on Zoom. First of all, thank you so much for letting me be here. I see I look at every table and I'm seeing my peeps. So I'm really I feel.
You may have some ideas for things you could.
It's one thing. I always can come up with a good idea or an idea, good or bad. It's just really nice to be here amongst a group of folks that are committed to learning about or being in partnership with rural communities. I am not from North Carolina, and I am not from a rural community. I grew up in New York City, in Brooklyn, the old Brooklyn, for those of y'all that know the new Brooklyn. And so I wrote notes for myself because I've already gone off script. So Adam gave me a couple things to talk about: building sustainable partnerships, navigating conflict, and adding and value add to both community and campus. So the idea of building sustainable partnership, I think, is critical. And actually, I will credit my colleagues for the last 21 or 2 years that I've had the good pleasure of working with and honor to now call friends in Eastern North Carolina that are part of Project Grace. I had started doing work around racial and ethnic minority participation in research. And I realized that the only real sustainable route to ensuring an inclusive research agenda was to actually have the folks that are to be part of designing that research. And so again, an idea, and I went to my collaborators in the eastern part of the state, and they were so gracious and open and willing to partner in ways that were beyond, I think, what any of us had imagined, and really transformed us in ways that I will be eternally grateful for. We started working up on a grant, and we only had about 5 or 6 weeks to write this NIH grant. And I basically was just the scribe. My collaborators were the ones writing. Are we okay with time? Am I already?
Yes, we're absolutely fine. Yes.
I'm getting to the sustainable partnership.
So please take your time.
One of the be careful. One of the key elements of that first grant that my collaborator talked about was making sure we all had a same language to talk about inequality. And BJ Council was the one that was emphatic that we all needed to be trained about that. I had no idea what she was talking about at the time. This is 20 plus years ago, before the language that we have to talk about inequality now had become more visible. And so we wrote in that training, and it was, again, transformative for us to really come to a shared understanding of not only the inequalities we were hoping to address outside of this partnership, but how those were recapitulated within the partnership as well. The privilege that exists on both sides, the targeted identities that had existed on both sides, and how we were going to come together as a collaboration to address that. So I think building in and understanding the complementarity of the skill set that you bring and the shared need for training and understanding about how we're going to work together is critical. A lot of the work that I have had to do personally in terms of my role in this partnership is about listening and humility. Uh, I, I remember the very first, amongst the first research presentations for our intervention that we were doing with families around HIV risk reduction in this community. I, had all my slides and everything, and I was ready to go. And in fact, I'll tell you the first presentation, and I'll tell you about this next one. The first one was just sharing with the community what we were hoping to do. And there too, I think I would have learned by this point. I came with my slides, I came with my I had the whole academic thing ready. And my collaborator, Melvin Muhammad, turned to me and was like, Doc, I think we need to go a different way. This is like right as the presentation's supposed to start. I was like, man, I don't know what you're talking about. What way are we going to go? Like, this is the way. And he said, I found this video, and he played a video about HIV/AIDS in the Black community that was so powerful, brought everybody to understand the shared need and interest and concern that we all had around this, what in that time was sort of off the charts incidence and prevalence of HIV in that community. There's no way that any of my slides would have brought folks to that point in the time that we had. And so we had a different conversation. I'm always grateful to Brother Melvin for being willing to push me because he understood what the community needed and certainly understood it better than me. Similarly, once we had developed the intervention, the next meeting that we had was engaging community members to participate. Again, I had my graphs and slides and everything. As I said, you think I would have learned by now. And I was talking about health disparities. And one of the participants, a mother in the group, raised her hand and said, Doc, you just keep talking about what's wrong in this community. There's a lot that's right here. Again, it was like a kaleidoscope and everything came into focus. I had been acculturated in the practice of medicine in the academy to look at communities in a deficit model. Regardless of what I look like, I had become acculturated. And it really required me it pulled me up short. It's actually making the hairs raise on the back of my neck. To say, how could I have just fallen for that line? Why am I not seeing the strengths in this community? Why am I constantly focusing on the deficits? So again, it's about listening and being willing and the humility to be able to say, I was wrong. And to internalize that, to allow yourself to be transformed. So that's part of building sustainable partnerships. I have like a page and a half of notes, so I could stop now or pick it up later.
Please continue.
All righty. Let's keep going then. The other is shared ownership, right? This is not a Giselle project. This is not a me project. And again, so many of my collaborators in the audience, I have had the amazing opportunity to work with, is that we come together to do this work. It's not just about my idea. I'm a general internist. I don't take care of people that are pregnant or like come with their children. I'm not interested. I'm sorry. I'm just not interested. I'm not good about taking care of two people at the same time. But my partners wanted to focus on HIV/AIDS in risk reduction in children who were 11 to 13 years old, because the age of sexual debut in that community was 13. And all of the interventions at that time were about for 16 and 17 and 18-year-olds. And they were like, that doesn't make any sense. We got to start early if we're going to reduce risk. Again, shared ownership, because I wanted to do diabetes or cardiovascular risk reduction or something that I knew something about. But I had to be willing to find collaborators that could make that sustainable. And then structure matters. We decided not to have a community advisory board because we wanted this idea of shared ownership. So we have a steering committee. I have one vote. I am not being advised by community members. I just have one vote, just like everybody else. And having that structure really ensured and enshrined the work to be completely majority rule around community influence, to decide on the project, to decide the momentum and the where we were going. Conflict. So my feeling is if you're in a partnership and there's no conflict, somebody's not engaged. Because if you're bringing different perspectives to a problem that you both feel strongly about, there's got to be conflict. It's not whether there's conflict, is what have you decided that how you're going to navigate that conflict. And fortunately, again, for BJ Council, we had those tools and we were able to bring those tools into play. And believe me, Rocky Mount and Chapel Hill are about an hour and a half away. And there were many meetings midway between where we had to just sit down and like talk some stuff out. And sometimes at very vigorous engagement. But that's, it's not whether it's going to happen, it's what you're going to do when it happens and how do you move through that? Because you'll move through it, and will the partnership survive after that? Because if it does, it's going to be stronger. Okay, and then I'll stop there because I think I'll have another opportunity to talk about value added.
Yes, thank you. And Lynn, just a reminder, they're asking if folks can speak directly into the microphone. So, Lynn is the director of CCPS. Tell us about the ways that you've seen involvement with rural communities be beneficial, both here at the university and with the communities you're working with.
Okay, but I'm probably going to go off script too. One, I didn't bring my notes, but the reason I'm going to go off script is I think it is the context of what these folks have said that makes things happen and bringing that all together. And I think one reason that the Carolina Center for Public Service does the work the way we do it is because of a lot of what you heard. It also, for me personally, rings a very personal note when I'll tell a little bit, we all told sort of, I grew up in Raleigh, North Carolina, very privileged. I had one grandmother who went to college, all my parents, all my aunts and uncles. I grew up in a family that was the expectation from the day you were born. It was where are you going to go to college? Most of them thought Clemson or the Citadel or somewhere, but I couldn't go to the Citadel. But anyway, my father died when I was young, and my mother married when I was a senior in high school. And as I met my new family, now here I was a senior, everyone always asked me, where are you going next year? But the people in my new family asked me, what are you going to do next year? And I was like, what do you mean? What am I going to do next year? I'm going to college. I mean, I didn't know I had a choice. Well, fast forward 2 years, and I had the greatest 2 years at St. Mary's College. I didn't learn a thing academically, but I got quite an education. And there was a question as to whether or not I would graduate, which I have on the back of my diploma, by the way. But anyway, and I told my mother, I said, if I keep going, I'm not going to, I don't know why I'm here. And so I took a year off, a gap year before there was such a thing, and worked in an elementary school. And then later went to East Carolina and became an elementary school teacher. So that sort of knowledge that, not just you're going to college, but the reason and what you can do with college. So fast forward of, family, all that, I come back to graduate school where I learned from a number of people. And I want to talk about them. I came to the Gilling School of Global Public Health, which is where I'm on faculty now. And the chair of the department had been thrown out of South Africa, Guy Stewart, with three other folks who had then gone to Los Angeles, sort of founded the School of Public Health here. And then at least two of them came here to help found our school. Well, Guy Stewart was the oddest little guy you've ever seen. At first, I thought he actually was the custodian at Gillings, and because he was just wiry, always wore jeans. But he taught a course that changed completely the way I think. And that one, and he actually it was more global. So it was sort of global teaching me locally, Marilena. But he said, he gave us two pieces of advice. He said, if I ever ask you what you're going to do, don't you dare tell me you're going to motivate people. And he said, because you need to know that everybody's motivated. You just need to discover what it is that motivates them. And then you build on that. And the other thing that came out of his work with Peace Corps, he said, and if you go in somewhere and you think they need a well and fresh water, and they say they need a Coke machine, get them the Coke machine. Because they're not going to listen about a thing you said unless you buy them, unless you listen to what they have to say. And so that whole sort of turning it around to say, oh, well, maybe people do what they need. And you're going to know the next person I'm going to talk about, because that's Mrs. Dr. Lucille Webb, who she was from Southeast Raleigh and was a big partner of a number of faculty here. She started an organization called Strengthening the Black Family. They trained a lot of our students too, and faculty. And she was funny because she would call and say, "You got to get this student and do something with them because they're not, you know." but you were a faculty engaged scholar when she was helping with our faculty engaged scholars program, and she said, "You know, I'm from Southeast Raleigh, and when I read about me in a grant, when I read about where we are, I don't know why anybody would want to come here, because all they say is what's wrong with us. They never say what's right with us." And so again, bringing that perspective that, you know, there is strength and knowledge and skills that communities have to impart to us, and that's just got to be a two-way street. Jack Geiger and John Hatch were two mentors of mine. There's a video, and I think there was a book before Jack died called Out in the Rural. They started the first community health clinic in the United States based on the South African model. And there's a story of they got it passed through Congress by not saying where it was going to be. Mm-hmm. Because people always would support the idea, but the minute you say, well, guess where it's going to be? They'd say, no, you don't need to put it in our, you know. Mm-hmm. And so they were in Mississippi, and they did things like write prescriptions for vegetables. Jack talked about, there was one time they put in the, into the budget, they put a tractor. And he said, obviously that was in the days they weren't looking at budgets real carefully. But they got a tractor so they could grow their own vegetables, and then employed people in the community. So there are all of these ideas that with community you can come up with. And so I think for me, when I think about service state, when I think about learning for the students, it really is a partnership and a reciprocity to it. And so I always think about it's not service for the state. It's not service to the state. It is service with the state. And that we can only accomplish it if that's how we go about it. And, you know, there's an old saying about it's amazing what you can accomplish if nobody has to take the credit. Well, it is just as amazing if everybody gets to take the credit. And I think that's what we're about doing. And I think helping students learn, you know, understand they're not learning the answers in Chapel Hill for some of this and the relationships. They're learning it through experiences. And with these partnerships that faculty have formed and others have formed around the state. I've told Eric, the Carolina Advising Corps, which is around the state, mostly with Carolina graduates. These are ways that students are learning before they get here or to some other college, and other things that really bring together the roles of us all.
Yes, please.
Thank you for that, Lynn. So one of the things that I meant to say, and I know that there are a lot of folks, particularly our student colleagues here, that are interested in engaging in some way. I'm all for that. I'm excited to find ways for you to partner with some of our amazing colleagues that are out in the communities. I will also say that the infrastructure that Lynn has developed through the Center for Public Service, that other colleagues like myself have built through longstanding partnerships, is the best, I believe, the best way to engage. Number one, it takes a lot of time and effort to effectively engage with people in the university, much less outside of the university. Number two, you all will leave. You're going to go somewhere, and we hope. And then what happens to the community? It's another, and this is what we heard and keep hearing over and over again, that folks are not interested in helicopter research, not interested in people dipping in, getting the experience, being extractive, and going and moving on to somewhere else. And that building on the infrastructure that exists, either through a longstanding collaboration, allows then that feeling, that knowledge generation, the collaboration to be enriched as opposed to being extractive. So I would strongly suggest that you find, if you have a particular interest in either a community or a topic, find a place where an infrastructure exists. One, you're going to learn from the people that have been doing this work. Two, one of the things that I have come to realize, even if I'm interested in diabetes and cardiovascular disease, there are a whole range of other issues that community collaborators are interested in seeing being worked on. And making that partnership and connection allows that all of these other needs to be addressed as well. And then thirdly, when you leave, you then have an infrastructure you can continue to build on, even if you're not in the same geography.
Thank you, Giselle. So coming back down to this end of the table to you, Dr. Orr, we want to acknowledge there are many things working well when it comes to rural community campus partnerships. Today's event is a way of showcasing many of those examples. That being said, from your lens, what are some of the key things that UNC and other institutions of higher education can do to improve how it serves both its rural students and the communities they come from?
Thank you so much for that question. And I got to tell you, just listen, I always enjoy hearing Giselle, you talk. And Giselle and I have offices like right next to each other. And we're so busy, we rarely see each other. And I remember the first time you were talking about some of the work that you had done. And I was like, man, I'm right next to a genius here. So I really appreciate that. But one of the things that Giselle mentioned that I think we often don't do in higher ed, when it comes to rural communities, we do come in and we say, how can we fix all the problems, right? And not having the mindset that really, if you think about students from our rural communities, they have so much to offer institutions of higher learning, and we can learn so much from them and learn so much from their communities. I think there are three things that particularly large complex universities like ours that we can do. One is making it easier to navigate the university. There's a language that we use in the university environment, and if you're not accustomed to understanding the organizational chart, it can be very, very difficult to navigate the institution. The second piece is something that we're doing in the enrollment space. Carolina, our enrollment numbers are good. They are always going to be good. But I alluded to this earlier. We've added the strategic enrollment management, which is one piece, but also access. Because again, while we don't have the capacity to enroll all the students, particularly in the state of North Carolina, that we'd like to enroll, we are increasing our enrollment by 5,000 students over the next 10 years to create greater access to students. But we also have an obligation to increase the college going rate in the state and to make opportunities available. That's why I love the work that we do with the Carolina Advising Corps and the great work that you all do, because it's increasing that access to opportunities, particularly UNC-Chapel Hill. The third piece that I think is critically important, and under our new student success infrastructure we've set up, we've created this area called academic excellence. And what academic excellence does, and actually Meg will be leading that. I know we haven't made the official announcement in all the HR systems, but I just told everybody here, so that's okay. What we know is that when students, they come to us, that when they graduate in their third, fourth, or 10th job in their working career, they will literally be working in a world that does not exist today. What that means is that they have to have the knowledge, the skills, and abilities to look out and anticipate the problems and the challenges and develop the solutions for that time. And so what that means that while they're here with us, we have to teach them what we've learned about asking questions and finding answers to those questions. And so I think that those are the three components that not just Carolina, we can do a better job, but just in higher ed in general, we can do a better job to support students.
And so Marquetta, coming your way with a similar question. What are some of the things that you think work well between community campus partnerships that you've seen, or something that could improve?
Yeah, I wore my Carolina boots on purpose. If you didn't notice, yeah, I was trying to be a really good partner.
Thank you.
Okay. Got it work.
Well, that's why I was surprised to hear that NC State. I was
Yeah, don't get used to this.
I got a little pep in for you. I got you.
You pushing it. No, but seriously, I think that you all have served as a really good example so far. As I was sitting there talking with Ariel, right? One of the things I know we're talking about things that really work well. You all really work well with connecting smaller nonprofits like ourselves with various departments across your campus. Where we could probably improve a little bit is we have no idea sometimes that these are various departments. And we also, don't know what other resources are available within your college. But what I think works really well is the partnerships and collaboration or interdisciplinary kind of projects and things that you all are already doing. And it sounds like a lot of them came from that all kind of just come together. Like WCC was actually our first second. The internships was the first introduction into the college, and then WCC, and then we got with Adam. And so I feel like there's at least 3 different folks where I really had no idea that you all separate. So you do a really, really good job of making things a bit seamless for organizations, and not having to make it feel like a project management situation where we got to hire somebody to manage the relationships. I think that's what you all do really well. In areas where you can continue to improve is letting organizations like ours know who's who in the zoo. Well, this is another department that I think you actually could benefit from. Let me introduce you to this person. And that comes through listening and hearing all of Freedom Org is very complex, and that is intentional. We are very comprehensive, and that is intentional for a rural community. And so for us, hearing what we have going on, hearing what we've, feedback that we've gotten from the community to be able to help us put the pieces together because institutionally what you can do. And so far, you all have done a really good job. I don't think, and since we've started with the internships in 2020, we've had some type of partnership and connection ever since. And since being here today, I hear even more that could happen in the future, especially around data. I don't know if I'm looking over here in different areas. But, I think those things really work well. And another thing that I think sometimes work well too is knowing who's who in the zoo within the community or topic area where you're focused on. And so I think we got introduced to WCC actually through another community partner, who told them about us. We had no idea that even at WCC even existed. Actually, one of the board members is actually a community member, Miss Doris Stith. And she's like, Marquetta. And actually, when I was talking about that youth-led organization or youth organization to someone, I think in the audience earlier, it was actually Miss Stith's organization. Miss Stith's nonprofit who really exposed me as a student. My mom made too much money, so I wasn't able to be a part of, sorry, I'm drawing a blank now. Yes, it's a community enrichment organization, but every summer they would come to UNC. Trio. I wasn't able to be a part of the TRIO program, but through that organization, I learned more about it, which made me more interested about college and learning what could be. And so I actually, that next year, I started going to the tech at the high school level. And so I graduated with a semester worth of engineering credits. So those are opportunities that we wouldn't have known about had you all and partners and community partners not coming to the community. So I think you all are doing a wonderful job of finding folks who meet and aligns with your mission and your purpose, and highlighting those folks like you're doing today by having myself and Ari here to be able to tell our own stories. And you don't have to tell them for us. And I think us telling our story means a lot more to students than hearing it from a professor and you're like, oh, well, you're just saying that. But no, seriously, we love to have you in our community because you have to think smaller organizations are always looking for folks to come and to stay, especially in rural communities because of brain drain. You never know what type of opportunities and job opportunities can come from that. As Aria already alluded to, she started out as a volunteer. And so now she's already moved her way up 2 positions. She's the top. She's the head of that department now, as a director. And so things like that, don't take for granted. There are a lot. And take it from me, I was a rural kid who promised I was never, ever coming back to my community. I was not coming back. But then when I learned the issues and through, my research and just understanding myself and my own biases as becoming a therapist, I started to learn more about my history, more about my ancestry that led me back to my rural community and my roots. And so if there are any rural students in here, your community needs you. I'm always trying to pull people back home in their community. It's a reason why it is the way it is. And it's up to us, the folks who've left, to go back and to be a part of those solutions and to bring in, academia. And UNC is one of the institutions that we work with, but of course we work with NC State. We have agriculture guys, we can't get around that. So, like I said, through that, we've met plenty of students who I know we talk about, we would love to hire them one day. So whatever opportunities that aren't there in your rural community, you're gaining the experience. I use that word experience again. You're gaining that experience now to go back to your community to create those opportunities and those jobs if they aren't there. Freedom Org was not there before I moved back. Mm-hmm. Now we employ at least 9 employees. So there's opportunity for you as a student, and I hope that I can be a face to bring young people back home. To do the work, to do the much needed work, to create the opportunities. I use my influence in sports a lot. It's hard getting people to focus groups and to have those conversations. My background in higher education, I understand data and the need to have it and so on and so forth. But when you have people in a tier 1 community who's working 2-3 jobs year round, and they're like, hey, I just need the problem fixed. We trust you, go out and do it. But I'm like, I need your voice. My voice is just one. My experiences are different. It makes a world of difference when they have that trust in you versus someone they don't know showing up in their community. And so if you can find a local nonprofit that's doing work that you're interested in, that's a part of the infrastructure that's already there, right? And that, Dr. Giselle was just talking about. Same thing with your colleagues, your professors, I should say. Your professors is doing the work. Reach out to them, see what's available. We have internships every summer, things like that. So don't be afraid to go out and figure out what's there. I don't like to reinvent the wheel. I just like to add fancy spokes on them. So don't be afraid to add spokes to a wheel via your experiences from your rural communities or your urban communities, because we like to travel to urban places and figure out what can work and how can we tweak it for rural communities as well, especially when you're hearing that your administrators, I mean, somebody's pretty high up. It's like, hey, we can learn from you as students. Take advantage of that by all means possible. So that's what I would say. You all are doing a really good job. Students, they are doing a really good job of connecting with community partners. Believe me when I say that. Like I said, since 2020, we have been in some type of relationship with this university, and I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully some of your students in the future.
I believe my microphone has died, but what I hear you saying in summary is that Tar Heels are great and awesome.
I heard that too.
Yes. Academically, you are amazing and you are greatly appreciated.
So Giselle and then Lynn, just to kind of wrap us up, what do you think we're doing? What would you like to see us be doing more of?
Well, I'll take the opportunity to talk about one project to try to tie this back, this idea of student success and experiential opportunities. So I had, again, the amazing fortune to partner with Stacy Lindau, who's at the University of Chicago, with her brainchild, which is called MapsCore. And the idea behind MapsCore is partner with a community organization that already has summer internships for high school students, and to map, literally go, boots on the ground map the assets in that community. So what was so amazing to me about this collaboration is growing up in New York, and as a high school student, I worked every summer. I've been working since I was 14 years old. Probably was not legal then, but hopefully we're not recording. But I needed to have summer work, and so this is a way to have meaningful employment, to engage in the mornings. They map their the community and the assets. So again, an asset focused approach to thinking about community. They in the afternoons they have a professional development opportunity where it's looking at data, answering a research question, and then finally at the end of the summer, there's an opportunity to present those results back to the community. And they're in groups of about 4 or 5 high school students with near peer mentors. So as students have gone through that program, then they become mentors. The college students then are mentoring the high school students, and they're going out in groups. During the pandemic, we had to shift that, and now one of my colleagues we started working together when she's a postdoc, is now a distinguished professor, makes me very proud. Leah Freyricks is now leading that and sort of morphing that in ways that is just beautiful to see. But that idea of, one, they're assets in the community, and we need to make sure that we have a good idea about it. Two, that there are organizations that are trying to provide meaningful employment for our youth. And three, that there's a way for us to come together to create that exposure, to understand understand data science, to understand the research questions communities might have, and to give those data back to the community. All of that is what literally made me cry when I first heard about MapScore. It's just for me, if we could have more programs like that goes back to that middle school, and goes even further back to create that pipeline or pathway to, for me, it's science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM fields, but really any field that a student might want to have access to, that is what I think we can do more of. That nidus was so important, but I think being able to build that out and have something like that in every community would be incredible.
Thank you. Okay.
Thanks. Marquetta, my son wrestled for NC State. So I have been known to wear red. And he's raising 2 little wolf packers, which I'm not as happy about. But anyway, so again, I'm thinking about what folks have said and kind of where we are. And so I wrote down maybe three things. It might be 4. One, we haven't talked specifically about grad students. And I think we need to be more intentional about making sure we are inclusive of graduate students when we do this work, because they're out there doing some great things, in their various disciplines, and also they're great in terms of mentoring at the undergraduates. So those connections. We have 2 projects underway that speak directly to some of what we're talking about. One is the database that is documenting partnerships between Carolina and community, whether it's through teaching, research, engaged service, but actual partnerships enduring, whether it's every year sending interns, but there's a contact here to talk to. And Cameron Morgan, who's right over there, is our point person on that. And hopefully soon you'll be getting something that it's coming online, and it'll be a searchable database. And it'll also be an opportunity for people to enter things they know about. So I don't know that we'll ever get it perfectly or we'll ever get everything, but it'll be a great way for people to begin to access things. And I think another way, well, let me say the other thing we're doing first. Campus-wide, there's the Carolina Engagement Council that has a representative from every school, some centers. Anyway, it's about 20 or 30 folks from all over campus that meets quarterly. And we are working with the chancellor's office. He has charged us to do a 3 to 5 year engagement plan for the university. And obviously, as part of that, it is beginning to think, how do we identify, how do people navigate, what are the connections? And so that's going to be happening over the next 6 months or so. And you'll probably be hearing from us on some of that. And then when I think about how do we learn about each other in a way? I thought about one of my favorite things, which is the Tar Heel bus tour. We visited Marquetta's community, but that's the work that Marilena's doing is a grant from that. UNC Rural is a partner. We've got all these partners, but that is an opportunity to take faculty and senior administrators around the state to see firsthand the connections, but also to gain ideas about what work they might do in partnership. James, you're going this year, aren't you?
I am.
All right.
Good time.
So, and so that's a way to bring, if community's not coming in, we need to go out as often as we need to have community come in. It needs to be that two-way street. And I've heard some folks talk about an idea about community access orientation. And just having some sort of, be a program, be whatever we do, some sort of way of bringing folks from community. And I think there's some folks talking about doing it at least more locally as a first start, almost to come in and say, okay, what are the kinds of things you need? Who do you call here to find out about it? But I think one thing, Marquetta and maybe others, that hopefully you see from some of this, if you know one point of entry, we can, you should call them whether you think they can answer it or not. And because in most cases, somebody's going, well, maybe this is the person you need, because we don't always know who that might be. But I do think we need to do a better job of making sure, and we probably need to know who else is coming to your community. So we're not, and hopefully that database will help do that. So I would say that those are some of the major things I think we need to do more of.
Thanks so much, Lynn. I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Yep.
I just wanted to acknowledge there's 3 people that I consider master connectors. Adam, Meg Zamarodi in the back. She sees the world as a matrix. And then Melissa Green, who also sort of sees the world as a matrix. These 3 people, if you're connected to them, you literally are connected to communities all across the state and an entire university. And that is, I don't think of those connections. These people are sort of jewels within our communities that really allow the kinds of things that you're describing to happen, to really, they literally see, you'll sit down and talk with Adam, and it's just like, and I'm like, how do you know all of these people? Meg, the same way. So if you know these folks, they're going to connect you to others.
Thanks so much, Giselle. And so we are coming up towards the end of our time. I know Dr. Orr has a hard stop, has to be at another important meeting too. But I wanted to ask maybe if we could just go really quickly down the line for any final thoughts.
I'd be happy to, can they ask a question?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, let's do that. Let's open it up for a couple questions.
Sorry, I didn't mean to put y'all on the spot.
Or maybe not.
Oh, I see one. Leslie.
Anybody that knows me, this won't surprise you, going a little dark, but how do you know your community, you go into it, and by the way, go state as well. People have experienced trauma upon trauma upon trauma, right? They have so many traumas. And we also don't want to look at a model where we're only looking at what's wrong, but how do you kind of, especially in this year in 2026, create the space for what people have experienced and are experiencing while still building on these new projects?
That was for me. For me, it's I think the first group hit the nail on the head, and that's trust. I was literally just explaining to Ariel a situation that happened to us before we became incorporated as a nonprofit with another institution, where they completely broke our trust. And if we can't trust you and the community trust us to find the partners, then we have a problem from the beginning. And so I take it personal because I'm the face, right? Like this, I tell everybody, this is no business, just some business venture for me. This is literally my family that I'm helping serve. Like, and if they're not you're from rural community, you know there's less than there's no such things as 7 degrees of separation, right? And so when they see a project is supposed to happen and then that project doesn't happen the way it is supposed to happen, that institution never gets called. We do. Institution never gets blasted. We do. When those oral histories are collected and they never see their story, they call us. They don't call the institution. So for us, it's been about contracts and MOUs. Yeah, and I'm just being honest and real because we have had to shift from the sentiments of just caring and listening and being there and just depending on good faith to this is literally a business and we have to protect our community. We have to protect our intellectual property because we are the experts. And we've literally had our intellectual property taken from us. And I promised my staff, and this was before Ariel's time, but I promised my staff that it'll never happen again. And I'm happy to say that we've never had that with UNC or our other institution, NC State, so far. So we're happy to say, like, if they're a nonprofit, and I say the same thing for you all. Like, if you're putting in all these hours of research and time, and from the academia side, you want yourselves and your times to be protected as well, right? And so for us, it's been about building trust and building structures around how to build trust. And for us, we got a lawyer, and now we have MOUs and contracts.
I just wanted to piggyback on this idea of trust, and to me, the tension between trust and humility.
Yeah.
So I'm going to describe 2 examples. The first is, okay, the mic, is that a different one? Okay, we're losing our mics. Okay, that's definitely better. Yeah, telling me something. The first is, again, my collaborator, Brother Melvin Muhammad, we were a couple years into that first project, and he called me up. He's like, Doc, what are all these people coming in here, doing cheek swabs, and all you UNC researchers are doing these cheek swabs and giving people checks? We don't have banks like that. Folks can't just cash a check like that. I was like, Brother Melvin, I don't know what you are talking about. I am not doing cheek swabs, but I will find out who is. So just realize that regardless of how long you've been working with folks, you will be the representative of UNC-Chapel Hill. So I had to find out, I had to talk with them. I said, you got to give cash. And first of all, people need to understand that you're collecting DNA and why. You don't just walk around and just give out checks for people's DNA. So that's one episode. And then the other is WCC, Whole Community Connections. When we first went into Robeson County, I can tell you, I screwed up big time. I did not do all of the groundwork that I've been preaching about for the last 45 minutes. I messed up. And I got called on it hard. The first session just completely blew up. And so again, like, it would have been really easy just to shut it down and keep moving. But we decided that we were going to stand in the fire. Like, I made the mess. I got to stand in the mess. I got to be willing to take the heat. I got to be willing to listen. I have to be willing to repair. I have to stand in this heat because I needed to have known better. And we were moving fast. The grant came. We were trying to get things out. We thought we had engaged in a way that would allow people to sort of see themselves in the work, but we did not. And even to this, I mean, when you talk about regrets, I don't really have a lot of regrets, but I have a lot of learnings. I have made a lot of mistakes. And that is one that will always stick with me. Because ideally, when you know better, you should do better. And I knew better and I didn't do better then. So.
I would agree. I think, just because you've been doing it for a long time doesn't mean you don't make mistakes or things don't happen or you misinterpret something. And that's why I think the most important thing is having an institutional partnership so that you do have places to go or people to talk to. And I think the other thing is, sometimes partnerships don't work out.
Yeah.
And realizing that before it gets to a point where, it's almost too late to rescue any of the relationship. But to come to a point of mutual agreement that maybe this isn't the time, maybe it isn't the place, maybe there'll be a future thing. I can think of work we've done that we maybe started doing, it just wasn't working, but we were able to come back later.
Yeah.
Because we hadn't moved too far and the damage hadn't been done. So I think that constant sort of checking in on where things are going, as well as having those connections with the institution. It can be individuals, but it also can be, that you have places to go when things aren't working out.
Okay, thank you to our wonderful panel. Let's give them a round of applause. We truly appreciate you sharing with us here today, and we look forward to keeping this conversation moving forward. All right, thank you.